Do you know anything about Socrates as a person?
Seemed boring.
He liked to go around poking at people and seeing if they actually knew anything, see if they actually knew what they were talking about.
Do you think Socrates would say that everyone has something useful that they know? Does he think that knowledge has to be earned?
I don't know if does knowledge have to be earned? Well, part of the reason I'm having a little trouble responding is because it's tough to make the distinction between Plato and Socrates. So to say that Socrates would say that knowledge has to be earned, I would say if you claim to have knowledge, then Socrates would definitely say you had better have some evidence to suggest that you can make the right to that claim. Because what Socrates did was ask people if they had poked at people to see what they knew. Because he was told that he was the wisest man in all of Athens, and he wanted to figure out why the heck why would someone say that about him? Why the Oracle of Delphi of all people would say it about him? So he would poke at people and poke at it.
Is that a person? Oracle of Delphi? I thought it was a building.
So where was it? Oh, it's Delphi's a place. And she had, I don't remember the exact name of the place that she was in. I don't think it was the Temple of Apollo. I know that's in Delphi, but she had her own little abode there, and she was a soothsayer. So people from all over Greece would go and ask her questions, and she'd give generally cryptic responses. Saying,
did she say she claimed she could see the future?
Yes.
No, I feel like that's not true. So how did she get popular? Did she actually give true?
Well, I don't know what you want.
I mean, the people gave claims that she told their futures?
So what she would often say would be something like, "Okay, so I'm asking you. I have this business decision. Do I close my business, or do I start up a new one, or do I move jobs or whatever?" And she would say something like, "The wind falls farther in the south," stuff like that. So when Socrates' enemies go to the Oracle of Delphi asking is there any man wiser than Socrates, they expect to get some cryptic answer like that, and then misinterpret.
She's like, "No, he's damn smart."
Exactly. She said, "No, he is the wisest man in all of Athens," and that's not the answer she normally gives. She normally gives.
She had met Socrates? Because that's crazy to just say straight up.
I don't know. I assume she's at least heard of him. Socrates. His name got around, and he was a weirdo. To do generally, if you're a philosopher, you go outside of Athens to do philosophy. All the pre-Socratics they went out of the city. Socrates brings philosophy into the Agora. The Agora is like the city square market area, and.
Why? What was the reason? Was it frowned upon to do philosophy in Athens?
I should know the answer to that. I don't. It's probably something like you have to go out into the desert, into chaos, into the unknown to get the wisdom.
Socrates did not write his own stuff. So how did he serve? Was he a military man early in life? How did he gain his status?
Well, he gained his status because not everyone, a lot of people grew to hate him. So when I'm saying that people, he would poke at people to see if they knew anything. He'd go up to a carpenter or something like that and ask them about, see what they know. And oftentimes they know how to make a chair, and they know how to make a table, and they do it really well. And that's knowledge they definitely claimed to have and actually did have. But then you poke at them about philosophy, and all of a sudden it's true nonsense that they claim to have and they definitely don't have. So people don't like that when you poke at you ask questions, and they start to realize that all of these things that I think I know I actually don't know. So he started making enemies that way. He'd go to the poets and see if they had any knowledge. And it didn't seem like the poets actually knew anything. It seemed like they knew things through inspiration. So they would come up with their grand poems and whatnot and then write it down, but it's not like they really knew exactly what it is they were writing, nor could they really understand it, interpret it properly. So even though they claimed otherwise. So in that sense, they're also...
So a person who didn't claim that they were knowledgeable.
That's Socrates. The one man who claimed he knew nothing, who knew that he knew nothing.
Was it just... I feel like knowledge can't be... The way I'm thinking of knowledge can't be the way that these people were claiming to know things. Because it's like... Knowledge, as I imagine it, is such a weak word now. And But let's say I know something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tell you I know how to do this. I know how. I know what. I know, I'll know if I know it. And I'll also know if I don't know it, right? The state of knowledge is a self-contained conviction.
Well, I'll argue against that. So there's a dialogue called the Euthyphro, and it's about, there are two things that Socrates is accused of. One is corrupting the youth, the other is impiety. So this is a dialogue about what is piety. There's this guy Euthyphro. He's accusing his father of murder.
So real quick, did Socrates? He was actually accused. He said, "Hold on, let me have a talk." Did he actually have a dialogue, or how does he convey this dialogue in response?
Remember, this is Plato, so this is.
But Socrates was actually accused of corrupting the youth and actually accused of impiety. So what are you supposed to believe? He actually had this conversation as well.
This particular one about the Euthyphro, generally, I mean, you gotta realize that Plato was absolutely.
Okay, well, let me phrase it another way. Socrates was definitely doing something with his thoughts, right? He wasn't writing them down.
Right.
So if not actually talking to people, that implies to me, if he didn't, he has all these dialogues. If he didn't actually talk to people this way, he must have been telling people he had these talks or something. Like there's some format that he was relating this information.
He was doing it in this manner. He was poking people, just asking questions to see if they actually knew anything.
So the same awful to read, difficult to understand dialogues I'm reading. He just went up to laymen and were asking these same questions to them.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, once again, you gotta realize Plato was absolutely a poet and a real genius. So if you take the dialogue, the Symposium, for example, this is like a story on a story on a story. Plato is telling us the story of the Symposium, but Plato himself is hearing this from Apollodorus, and Apollodorus has heard this from Aristodemus.
This is all written in the...
This is written in the text, yes.
Okay.
And Aristodemus was there at this party, the Symposium, but he didn't really have any dialogue there. He was just a minor person there. And the Symposium itself is a bunch of speeches, including a speech that Socrates gives. And the speech that Socrates gives isn't really a speech. It's his relay of a conversation that he had with this lady Diotima. So it's like a story within the story, within the story, within the story.
And does it seem natural when you read it? Does it seem like it naturally would have happened that way? Like there's a good element of truth?
Oh, yeah. Well,
good fiction seems natural, I would say.
In some sense, yes. But in some sense, you read the Symposium, and all of the speeches that are being told are building on one another. And then when Socrates has a conversation with Diotima, what Diotima is telling Socrates is also in response to all the other speeches that are laid out in this party that's happening in principle after this conversation with Diotima. So make no mistake, the Platonic dialogues are carefully curated, and everything is absolutely meticulously written. There's nothing out of place. There's no way any of this, without divine intervention, there's no way any of this actually happened explicitly the way Plato writes it. Well, Plato, a good example, Crito. Crito is, once Socrates is imprisoned, there's a friend of his, Crito, who comes along for a couple days and has a conversation with Socrates, trying to convince him to run town and escape his death. The dialogue, Crito, is just one conversation where you're condensing whatever it is, the 12 days that Socrates is in prison, you're distilling it into the principle of this dialogue, of this one conversation. So it's not explicit. Generally, you could probably say, yeah, he had this conversation with the guy, Crito. Yeah, he had a conversation with, maybe you could say the Euthyphro. I mean, some of these things are a little harder to tease out because it was so long ago, and Plato began writing dialogues 12 years after Socrates died too. So it's probably something.
What was Plato doing in the meantime?
A lot of traveling. I don't know exactly what it all was, but I imagine a lot of learning, a lot of Plato was.
You mean to say he didn't publish his writings? He was probably writing in the beginning.
He didn't write until he told you to say.
Wow, that's a good memory or a good imagination.
Socrates was very dear to Plato. Yes, Socrates is very dear to Plato. So when he died, that really sucked.
Did Socrates or Plato have any love interests?
Yeah, Socrates was famously a horrible husband and father.
So he had kids?
Yes, he had 2 kids, I think. Well, that's one of the cool things about the apology, which is it doesn't translate as apology. It translates apologia, translates as defense. That's a better translation. But it's Socrates' defense before the Athenian court, defending himself on the accusations of impiety and corrupting the youth. And one of the last things he says before the court is that I know you guys are putting me to death for this, for poking at all of you and making sure that you guys don't claim unearned knowledge. But despite the fact that you all hate me for this, even though you're going to put me to death, please do this to my kids. Make sure that you keep them in check and that they make no claims to unearned knowledge. Which, you read that, when I read that, I was just blown away that you can be so confident that you're doing the good, that you actually are, and wish that for your kids, despite the fact that they're hating the people that you've done this to, are hating you for it so much that they're going to kill you for it. And you want that for your kids.
I can't really imagine
amazing.
what it has to be a political hate. They hate what you're doing to the system. How can you take
Socrates didn't really, he had influence. So to take your point, Socrates,
was he mean?
No. I mean, he joked around. Like he knew he was talking to someone dumb when he was talking to someone dumb, and could lead them on and just show them how dumb they were. So they were.
Did he do that?
Yeah.
That's so funny.